A Russian Sukhoi Su-34 fighter bomber, affectionately nicknamed Fullback by NATO, is cruising high above the Ukrainian countryside. Its mission: drop devastating glide bombs on Ukrainian positions below. But suddenly, out of nowhere, a sleek F-16 Fighting Falcon appears on its radar. Before the Russian pilots can react, a missile streaks towards them. In a flash of fire and twisted metal, the Su-34 plummets from the sky. At least that's the story according to pro-Russian military bloggers on social media. On Saturday, October 12, 2024, the popular Telegram channel Fighter Bomber sent shockwaves through the online military community. Their claim? A Ukrainian Air Force F-16 had scored its first confirmed kill against a Russian Su-34, downing the aircraft roughly 50 kilometers from the front lines. If true, this would mark a significant milestone in the ongoing conflict. It would be the first time one of Ukraine's newly acquired Western fighters had tasted blood against a Russian jet. But as with many aspects of this war, separating fact from fiction proves challenging. Is there any official confirmation of the incident? As of now, both sides are keeping mum on the alleged shoot-down. The Russian Ministry of Defense has made no statement acknowledging the loss of an Su-34. Similarly, Ukraine's military brass have yet to trumpet what would undoubtedly be a morale-boosting victory. This silence isn't unusual in the fog of war. Both sides often delay confirming losses until they can gather more information or craft a narrative that suits their purposes. However, the lack of photographic or video evidence of the downed jet adds another layer of uncertainty to the claims. Other pro-Russian bloggers have disputed some details of the initial report. While they seem to confirm the loss of an Su-34, they question whether it was truly engaged in glide bombing at the time of the attack. Some have even suggested that a Western-supplied Patriot surface-to-air missile system, not an F-16, may have been responsible for downing the jet. F-16 show their teeth, game changer in the skies over Ukraine. How significant would an F-16 victory be? If confirmed, this engagement would represent a watershed moment in the air war over Ukraine. Since Russia's invasion in February 2022, Ukraine has relied heavily on Soviet-era fighters and air defense systems to keep Russian jets at bay. The introduction of F-16s into the Ukrainian arsenal was long awaited and hotly debated among Western allies. Ukraine received its first batch of F-16s in late July 2024, with an estimated dozen aircraft delivered so far. While this number pales in comparison to Russia's fleet, the technological edge provided by these fourth-generation fighters could prove decisive in key engagements. The F-16's advanced radar, electronic warfare suite, and ability to employ long-range air-to-air missiles like the AIM-120 AMRAAM give Ukrainian pilots significant advantages. If they can successfully challenge Russian aircraft like the Su-34, it could drastically reduce the effectiveness of Russia's air campaign. However, it's important to note that Ukraine is still in the early stages of integrating F-16s into its air force. Training pilots and ground crews on the complex systems takes time. In August, Ukraine reportedly lost one of its precious few F-16s in an unexplained accident while countering a Russian missile and drone attack. This highlights the ongoing challenges of operating these advanced fighters in a high-intensity conflict. Glide bombs threat neutralized, F-16s may be turning the tide. How could F-16s impact Russia's bombing campaign? One of the most devastating weapons in Russia's arsenal has been the use of glide bombs. These weapons, often dropped from Su-34s flying at high altitudes, have wreaked havoc on Ukrainian defensive positions and civilian infrastructure. Their long standoff range has made it difficult for Ukraine's existing air defenses to effectively counter the threat. The introduction of F-16s potentially changes this equation. With their superior speed, radar, and long-range missiles, F-16s could theoretically intercept Russian bombers before they reach their release points for glide bombs. This would force Russian pilots to either abort their missions or risk direct confrontation with the more agile Western fighters. Military analysts are closely watching to see if this alleged shoot-down represents a one-off event or the beginning of a shift in air tactics. If Ukrainian F-16s can consistently threaten Russian bombing missions, it could significantly reduce the pressure on ground forces and civilian targets. Ukraine confirmed strike on Russian airbase housing Su-34s. Has Ukraine taken the fight to Russian territory? While the air-to-air engagement remains unconfirmed, Ukraine has openly acknowledged another daring strike against Russian aviation assets. On October 10, 2024, Ukrainian forces successfully attacked the Kanskaya military airfield deep inside Russian territory. Located in Russia's Adygea Republic, roughly 430 kilometers from the front lines, the airbase reportedly housed a significant number of combat aircraft. Ukraine's general staff confirmed the operation, carried out in cooperation between multiple intelligence and special forces units. A source within Ukraine's security service, SBU, claimed that 57 Russian warplanes, trainers, and helicopters were based at the airfield at the time of the attack. This included Su-34 fighter bombers, the same type allegedly shot down by the F-16, as well as Su-35 jets and Mi-8 helicopters. The general staff also reported the presence of Su-27 fighters at the base. While the full extent of the damage is still being assessed, Ukrainian officials stated that the strike successfully targeted an ammunition warehouse, resulting in a large fire visible in footage shared on social media. This attack demonstrates Ukraine's growing capability to strike sensitive Russian military targets well beyond the immediate battle lines. The long game, air superiority, and the future of the conflict. What does this mean for the overall air war? As the conflict in Ukraine grinds on, the battle for control of the skies remains a critical factor. Russia entered the war with a significant numerical and technological advantage in air power. However, Ukraine's determined resistance, bolstered by Western-supplied air defense systems, has prevented Russia from achieving the total air supremacy it sought. The introduction of F-16s and successful strikes against Russian air bases represent a potential turning point. If Ukraine can consistently challenge Russian aircraft and disrupt bombing operations, it could drastically alter the balance of power on the ground. However, significant challenges remain. Ukraine still operates a relatively small number of F-16s compared to Russia's substantial fleet. Training enough pilots and maintaining these complex aircraft in a war zone environment will be an ongoing struggle. Russia, for its part, is likely to adapt its tactics in response to the F-16 threat. We may see increased use of standoff weapons, changes in flight patterns, or attempts to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses with mass attacks. The Russian aviation industry is also working to replace combat losses, with regular deliveries of new Su-34s reported, though exact numbers remain unclear. As winter approaches, both sides will be looking to gain any advantage they can in the air war. Ukraine's Western allies are closely watching the performance of donated weapons systems like the F-16. Their effectiveness could influence future military aid decisions and potentially impact the course of the entire conflict. The alleged F-16 shootdown of a Su-34, while still unconfirmed, offers a tantalizing glimpse of what could be a new phase in the battle for Ukraine's skies. As more information comes to light and both sides adjust their strategies, the world will be watching to see who ultimately gains the upper hand in this high-stakes aerial chess match. Subscribe for more.